Josh Phillips is a senior investigative reporter with Epoch Times. We're talking to him today about the coronavirus. Josh, tell us about the coronavirus. First of all, when was it first detected, first discovered?
So initial reports were claiming it came from this Chinese seafood market, but it's now turning out that the initial reports had nothing to do with the seafood market. This came from December 8, actually, and the first case was traced to December 1st. It turns out that people who were talking about it in China were being arrested. 8 doctors were arrested for talking about it. And so it appears there was a cover-up for a long time. And, kind of late in the game, the Chinese authorities did respond to it. By that time, pretty much 5 million people had already left Wuhan. They locked down the city, and we're in a pretty difficult situation now as it stands.
What caused this coronavirus?
There's mixed analysis. Initial reports were claiming it came from a live seafood or a live animal market. There was the bat soup rumor. That does not appear to be accurate, although bats do carry a type of coronavirus. Currently, the origin is unknown. There has been lots of speculation. Some people say it's a bioweapon that escaped a lab. Some say it was a vaccine experiment escaped a lab. Keep in mind that one of China's main laboratories that researches viruses like these, a P4 laboratory, is in Wuhan, about 20 miles away from that market that they said the case originally started from. At this time, though, we do not know we can't say for sure where it actually came from.
Josh, how disturbing is it that people are not sure where it came from?
It's pretty disturbing. Some people have noted that there's a couple issues. When you're talking about the Chinese Communist Party's narrative that it came from this live market, that's problematic because they shut down the live market, which means that when foreign inspectors go there and go and see what happened, it's shut down. There's nothing there to look at, nothing to see. So there's no way for them to trace it. Some analysts have noted that if it did in fact come from the market, as Chinese authorities were saying, the way they shut it down would have exacerbated the problem because you have all these pests like rats, different types of, fecal matter, different types of things. Even it's rumors now that it, could be spread through even blood supplies because pregnant women are transmitting it to their babies in China, allegedly. And so if they did not clean up that market properly, it would have actually spread the virus even worse. And it appears they pretty hastily shut it down. But if it's a bioweapon, if it was something escaped from this lab, it's even a bigger deal. Even if it wasn't a bioweapon, even if it did escape from the lab through normal means, it's pretty bad on the Chinese Communist Party that a slip-up would have allowed something like that to happen. So we'll have to see what the final verdict is, but it's not looking good for the Chinese Communist Party.
Josh, how does it spread? How do humans get it?
Well, it's a coronavirus, like a flu. It's about, an early analysis is showing it's about 79% similar to the SARS virus, which in early 2000s was sickening people across China. Coughing, sneezing, that kind of thing. But it appears that it's even worse than SARS in some regards. There have been reports that even, for example, bodily fluids, like even the fluid on your eyes could carry it, to that extent. As I mentioned, there were reports just recently in China, I think yesterday, within the last couple days, saying that women are transmitting it to unborn babies, meaning that it could be contained even in the blood supply, which means that if you get this virus, it's not just something in the lungs. This is a bit more serious than any kind of common coronavirus.
How deadly is it?
The various estimates. Now, the Chinese Communist Party is reporting fairly low numbers, still higher than what reported on SARS. Even with SARS, there was a cover-up. If you look at Western analysis and leaked numbers, some say as high as 10% death rate. We can't say for sure, mainly because the numbers coming out of China are not reliable. There have been videos of people in China at the hospitals showing bodies and, bodies stacked, bodies next to patients, living and dead next to each other. That we actually, Epoch Times, we just made phone calls into Wuhan. They said the crematoriums are working 24/7 to dispose of bodies. There are some mathematical estimates on what that would mean. Some put the death rate as high as 24,000-ish, but if you look at Chinese official numbers, it's only in a few hundred.
How is it treated, and should people in Western countries and in America worry?
There is currently no official treatment for the new coronavirus. But doctors in Thailand claim that they've been able to treat it using drugs for the normal flu and AIDS. There are some people who broke down the sequence of the virus and showed some very peculiar things, which I mentioned before. There are rumors it did come from a lab. There is evidence of, let's say, human manipulation within the sequence of the virus. Rumors, according to some scientific analysis, I should say, showing that it may even have parts of the AIDS virus in it, which is pretty peculiar. But given that some doctors are reporting the AIDS drugs do help treat it, there might be something there.
Mm-hmm. How difficult is it to diagnose, and is there a problem with doctors misdiagnosing this?
So in China right now, they're using these testing kits to diagnose the virus. And there are various reports on this. One of the big problems is that early on, the Chinese Communist Party had limited numbers of testing kits. And so, in other words, the number of cases they were even capable of reporting were limited to the number of testing kits they were being given. And if people were not able to be tested, they were told, go home, quarantine yourself, lay down. They were not given a hospital bed. They were not counted among the numbers. There are two conflicting reports now. Epoch Times actually had an article noting this conflict in reporting, that the Chinese official state media is claiming on one end that they now have more testing kits than patients, and so there's no issue with diagnosing. But local reports from Wuhan, where the city has been locked down and it's kind of the epicenter of the virus, doctors are saying that they don't have nearly enough testing kits and there's no way they can track the number of cases.
Josh, why does this seem to keep happening in China? There's lots of poverty in the world. There are a lot of third world countries. Why China?
Hard to say. I mean, again, this goes back to speculation on one end that this was a virus that escaped one of the labs. And keep in mind that China's first level 4 virus research facility is located in Wuhan. That's the P4 lab, which is under the Chinese Academy of Sciences, which does in fact have some ties to the People's Liberation Army, the official military of the Communist Party. If you want to get into why it's happening in China, other than the possibility of an escape, well, hard to say. I mean, why? That's a good question to ask. Why is it happening there and not other third world countries, other places where you do have poverty and maybe not the cleanest conditions? Some would blame it on the types of foods, such as this food market, where they're eating creatures that a lot of people would not eat. But at the same time, if you look at other countries that do have similar types of food markets, you haven't had those issues there. So hard to say, nothing conclusive yet, we'll have to see.
Josh, is the U.S. government advising people not to go to China?
Currently, there is a quarantine in place of people traveling from China to the United States. Taiwan as well also has a quarantine in place. People traveling from the mainland to Taiwan have to be quarantined for 14 days. In terms of, with the U.S., it's a travel restriction. Many countries now are becoming a lot more cautious with people coming from Wuhan especially. We'll see if it's too little too late. The virus has already spread international.
Finally, Josh, how does this end?
How does it end? Hard to say. Well, it's going to end in a few ways. One, we're going to have to see whether the Chinese numbers are accurate, because if they're not accurate and the virus is more widespread than initially thought, it could be spreading outside of China, and it's possible that the quarantine internally was not enough. Hopefully that will not happen. There's also a possibility that people in China are going to wake up and see the Chinese Communist Party for what it is, because you have, I think, close to 30 cities on lockdown now in China to various extents. Reports and videos of people being rounded up, thrown in these police vans. People in Wuhan especially not wanting to go to the hospital anymore because for example, this recent hospital they built in 10 days with 1,000 beds in it is allegedly a quarantine zone under control of the People's Liberation Army. Well, officially under control of the People's Liberation Army. People are afraid of going to it. And you have Chinese police going door to door and taking people who show symptoms of the virus. And so people are not trusting right now of Chinese authorities.
Josh Phillips, Senior Investigative Reporter, Epoch Times. Josh, thank you for taking the time. We appreciate it.
A real pleasure. Thank you.